desert. I'm Melanie, and today we are going to be repotting and pruning some of the plants from our courtyard. We're trying to move everything out of our courtyard into pots so that this whole area can be demolished eventually and be one flat open area. So all these plants have to get repotted. So what we're going to be doing today is repotting our blueberries, our blackberries, our canna lilies, and our lemongrass. The first thing we want to do is prepare our pots. So last time when we were pruning, we had those big huge pots and they had holes on the bottom that we could just pop open with a screwdriver. These smaller pots we're going to be using today do not have that option, so we're actually going to have to drill them ourselves. All you need is a drill and a drill bit, whatever size you feel is necessary, and just go right through the bottom of your pot. We're going to put 2 drainage holes on this one, and that should be good to give us a little bit of drainage. The blueberries are going on in these pots and they like a wetter soil, so they don't need too much drainage. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to dig up these canna lilies. So I'll be right back after I get ready to do that, and we'll dig these guys up. Okay guys, so I have cleared out all of this dead foliage from these canna lilies. We started here with 2 plants, and we will see how many rhizomes we actually get out of the ground today. So canna lilies can be grown from seed, and this is one of the seed pods. The pods are covered in a really hard coating, which makes the seeds really difficult to germinate, so most people do not grow them from seed. Instead, they just let them expand by the tubers, and as you can see, we've had exponential growth from 2 plants to no telling how many we're going to get out of this. I think we ended up with around 20 to 30 plants at the end of the year. So for these, removing the dead foliage, just going to trim it off close to the ground, get rid of all this dead stuff. And now what we're going to do is dig up these rhizomes under the ground and clean them up. And they're going to go in these little bags until springtime when the temperature is warm and stable, and they can be planted back into a pot for outside. So we're just going to kind of dig down in here and loosen the soil and try to see how many of these rhizomes we end up with. So canna lilies are not actually lilies at all. They are in the ginger family, and just like gingers, they grow by these big huge roots underneath the soil line. I may not be able to separate them all. So this is one of the rhizomes, and I'm just going to keep digging through here, pulling out all the rhizomes, and we'll see how many we get. Okay, after all of that, we ended up with 36 rhizomes. That's a lot when we started with only 2 this year. So these things definitely exponentially grow. So you have to be sure wherever you plant them, you're capable of digging them up and separating them out periodically. Otherwise, you're going to get a forest. And they're going to overtake all of your other flowers. But now I'm just going to clean these up. I'm going to put them in these little cotton bags for a couple of months until we're ready for their springtime planting.
All right, hey guys, little host change up. I'm Mike. I'm going to take you through replanting our lemongrass. So first thing is lemongrass can be an allergen, and these leaves can be kind of like razors. So I would recommend whenever you're handling it and dealing with it, you wear gloves. This is good from zone 10 to 11, And you want to bring this inside before it gets below 45 degrees. Okay, so all we're going to do is we're going to trim all this down so about that much is sticking up out of the ground. And then once that's done, we'll go ahead and dig them up. Okay, so we have all the excess leaves trimmed off. As a benefit, it smells really good out here now with the lemongrass. So now we're going to go ahead and dig these guys up, get the roots cleaned up a little bit, and replant them in our big blue pot. Okay, so now we have all 3 of our lemongrass plants dug up. We're going to go ahead and transfer them into this big blue pot. This big blue pot currently consists of a mixture of the potting soil that was in this planter, coconut coir, vermiculite, and perlite. And we did that purposely to get it to hold its moisture really well because it gets so hot where we live. We want this pot to be able to hold the moisture. So all I'm going to do to plant it, I'm going to tuck this guy in here. I'm going to cover him up. And then once I have the other 2 in here, I'll just go ahead and give him a good watering, and then he should be all set. Okay, so we have all 3 of our lemongrass plants planted in here. We purposely left room for mulch that we can add in later. So we left, maybe a 2-inch gap between where the soil currently is and the top of the pot. So now we're going to go ahead and water these guys, and then they'll be ready to come inside for the winter until we can move them back outside in the spring.
Okay, our next plant that we're going to be pruning and digging up today are our blueberries. We have a Brightwell and an Austin blueberry. It's really good when you're doing blueberries that you have different varieties because you'll actually get bigger fruit that way when they cross-pollinate. These guys have not done as good as we would hope. They are zone 7 to 9, so they should do great here in zone 8, but they just haven't flourished. So we're definitely going to get them out of this bed and put them in a little bit of a cooler area where they don't get quite such a hot amount of afternoon sun. The good thing to know about blueberries, this is what's called a rabbit eye, which is a smaller, more compact blueberry and tends to do well in warmer climates. So make sure you get a blueberry that's going to work good for your particular climate. So we're going to do a little bit of pruning on this guy. All we want to do really is make sure we get any dead growth off of here. These are 1st-year blueberries, so they're going into their 2nd year. So they're not going to have a lot of pruning to do on them. Down here, there's a little dead piece here that we're going to get rid of. Most of this is good. Down here you have your woody sections. Those are old growth. You don't want to mess too much with those unless you're pruning out the whole cane. And if you're doing that, you want to do that at the very bottom where they go into the dirt. These greener ones, these are newer growth. And then the really pink at the very top, this is where it's just starting to get some new growth on it this year. So this is very new growth here. Now here, I have some where it's green and then it starts to turn brown. That's dead area, so we want to definitely trim that off. Just get rid of those. So I'll continue to clean this guy up. I'm going to be careful where it's budding. We have a few little buds here. We want to make sure we leave those because that's where our new blueberries are going to come from this year. So I'll clean him up and then we'll start to replant. Okay, so this is our Brightwell blueberry. This one actually did a little bit better than the Austin one for us. We actually got some fruit off of this one. They weren't very tasty, but but we did get some fruit off of it last year. And what I wanted to show you is these two central stems here are crossing each other, and when you're pruning, you don't want to leave that because these can then rub together and cause openings for bugs and disease to get into. So I need to trim one of these off, and I'm going to trim this one that's growing very crooked. I'm just going to take it all the way off, all the way back here, and that way we don't have that rubbing issue. So this one's doing really good. We've got him all repotted. He's all pruned up now. We will water these two in, and then they are all done. These should be good outside. You don't have to worry about putting them inside zone 7 to 9. And one thing you want to keep in mind, these really like an acidic soil. So come spring, I will be mixing some sulfur into the soil here to bring the acid level up. These also do not like fertilizer, very low amounts of fertilizer. Probably one of the issues that is most common for me, because I have a tendency to pour our leftover hydroponic solution on our plants, and that is way too much nutrient for some of these plants. So for blueberries, definitely don't do that. You need to keep the fertilizer level low on these guys. So our last repotting and pruning project for today is our blackberries. These are Prime Arc Freedom blackberries, which is a thornless variety. These are actually thornless, unlike the raspberries. But they do grow to be around 15 to 20 feet, and we do have one that has exceeded that. We got these last year, and they were probably about this high when we got them. They were really tiny, and as you can see, they really grew a lot. Now, something to know about blackberries. These guys, they fruit twice a year. The spring and summer, and then again in fall, summer to fall. So what happens when they fruit is they shoot out what's called a primo cane, which is what these are. These are the primo canes. And then if you trim the primo canes, they will start to shoot out smaller branches on the sides, and you'll get more fruit that way. If you just leave the primo cane alone, then you're only going to get fruit along the cane, but if you cut it, then you're going to get fruit along all of those little branches as well. So we want to trim these a little bit. We do want to leave usually about 5 to 6 primo canes. Since these are very young, this one only has 3 primo canes, so we're not going to cut those off, but we are going to cut the length a little bit. So we'll just trim these guys back. If you have these growing on a lattice, then you want to measure to the top of your lattice. We don't have them on a lattice yet, so I'm just going to find a bud where I think it looks good, and I will trim back to that point. Really want to go here. Okay, so we'll probably trim all of these back around the same length. We'll get rid of all of these dead leaves, and then we'll work on repotting. I have 4 of these to do, so I'll get right back with you when I'm done. Okay guys, that's it for this episode. We have our blackberries all repotted. We're going to water those in, and they'll be ready for mulch come springtime. These should be fine out here. They're good from zones 5 to 9, so they should be fine outside. And that is it. Hopefully you guys learned some new information, found this helpful. If so, please do the like and subscribe so that you can get further notifications when we post a new video. See you next time.